Oh, hello. My name is Mara, and welcome to Books Like Whoa. Okay guys, so I have recently had several books that while I was reading them, I thought to myself, there are books very similar to this for specific reasons that I would like to recommend to people. So some of these are like pretty straightforward read-alike titles. This is like a, if you like this, you might like this kind of video. And some of these are not overall read-alikes, but I wanted to mention that there is a specific element in a book that I think folks would enjoy in another book. So they may not even be the same genre sometimes, but there may be like a specific character type or some themes or whatever that I just wanted to raise to people's attention. If what you liked about the book was this, you would maybe also like this in a different book. So let's dive in with the one that first inspired this. So The City We Became by N.K. Jemisin. If you liked this, let me specify. What you liked about this was the magic system, which is this idea of essentially like people being able to talk to a city or being able to embody a city's spirit. There is a very similar magic system, or at least like a similar magic type, in Mur Lafferty's Shambling Guide series. So the first one, I believe, is the Shambling Guide to New York City. So if what you liked was that cool magical element of this one, I wanted to mention that Mur Lafferty does have a series that is much lighter in tone, I should say, and much more straightforwardly, like I would probably consider this to be like more of a literary version of speculative fiction, and I would call what Mur Lafferty's books do more like straightforward kind of urban fantasy. Those are two parallels in terms of the actual magic being used. Okay, next, more straightforward. There's like a lot of parallels here actually once you like start thinking about it. So if you liked 8 Perfect Murders from Peter Swanson earlier this year, a recent release that I actually think is quite similar, including the title, you'll see 8, is The Eighth Detective by Alex Pavasi. What I think is similar about these is well, first of all, they have very similar titles, but they are both very kind of meta whodunit type books. So they are sort of commenting upon the genre of mystery itself in a similar fashion. So I wanted to mention that if this one I think got a lot more build up and hype than this one has gotten, I actually think this is a better book. I will say something that is slightly different, but again, I think sort of a parallel. This is interconnected short stories versus this, there's 7 of them plus a framing device. And this is one straightforward narrative. However, this book is frequently like pausing to talk about 8 classic whodunits. So they also, I think, both somewhat have a story within a story element to them. So yeah, anyway, this one I know got more hype, but if you liked the meta quality of this and the fact that it was like talking about a bunch of different mystery stories, I think you should definitely give this one a try. And like I said, I gave this 4 stars. I gave this 4.5 stars. This is one of my like favorite contemporary whodunits I've read in a very long time. Okay, then we're starting to get into a couple that I know might be annoying because when video is going up, there is not necessarily a release. Some of these ones I'm gonna mention are not necessarily out yet, but they will be out. And when they come out, I want you to know about them. So if you liked Well Met by Jen DeLuca, there is a contemporary romance coming out, I believe on October 6th, called Spoiler Alert by Olivia Dade that I think you will also like. What I like about both of these is that they are very like geeky, fandom-based contemporary romance. I think both of them get kind of fan culture right in a certain way, and are adults just like unironically loving what they love. So if part of what you loved about Well Met was that kind of vibe to the overall like settings and types of characters who show up on page, then I think that you would really like Spoiler Alert. And Spoiler Alert is also 4.5 stars for me, as this one was last year. It's very charming, just very, yeah, I think if you like this one, you probably would like Spoiler Alert as well. And then another one that includes a book that's not quite out yet when this video is going live, but it is coming out very soon. So if you liked the Southern Book Club's Guide to Slaying Vampires by Grady Hendrix earlier this year, I think you should definitely give When No One Is Watching from Alyssa Cole a try. And that is because while this is marketed as a thriller, I actually really think that this is better thought of as horror. And this is definitely horror. And it's horror that is dealing with a lot of the same thematic topics in terms of location and race. So this thematically is about kind of white flight to the suburbs in the 90s and like all the racial implications of that. And this is about gentrification in the 2020s, all the racial implications of that. And both of them, I think, are really best thought of as horror novels. So this is coming out, I believe, on September 1st. So if you like this one earlier in the year, you should definitely give this one a try. And I do just generally think people's expectations will be better met by this book if they think of it as horror and not as thriller. Okay, and then one that's a little older, two older books, I guess. If you like Assassin's Apprentice by Robin Hobb, the book or the author that this really reminded me a lot of is Tamora Pierce. Now that makes sense because these were authors who, like the books I'm thinking of, were both written in the 90s. And I just think that the types of kind of slow burn, which is a weird thing, I guess, to say about a fantasy, but like very character driven, very like writing driven fantasy reminds me a lot of each other. This has a very cozy feel that the Tamora Pierce books also gave me. I personally was a Circle of Magic kind of girl, but I know that Alana, like those books from Tamora Pierce, are some of the most popular. I should say that this is not YA. That does follow a young person, like it's a coming of age story. So the Tamora Pierce books are YA, so they both have young protagonists. This one is not like specifically written for a younger audience, but the age of the characters is similar in that respect. And yeah, like I think if you want just sort of like warm, cozy fantasy, maybe that's what I'm trying to get at. I think both of those really kind of hit the spot. So I think if you liked Assassin's Apprentice, you should definitely give Tamora Pierce a try. I should everyone, because Tamora Pierce is just a queen. Okay, so the next one is going to be a little bit more of a stretch in terms of, these are not books like that are one-to-one corresponding, but they have, I think, very similar character types at their core. So I would say if you like All Systems Red by Martha Wells, and what you like about this book is Murderbot. Jane Doe in Jane Doe reminds me a lot of Murderbot. They are both dispositionally destructive to somewhat degree, and they both think that makes them like utterly incapable of love and unlovable, but you as the reader can see the good in them, and that is a big piece of what you're kind of coming to the book for, is like rooting for them. They both are also driven by sort of like mystery plots, and at least in this book. This definitely has sort of a mystery plot engine to it, even though it's sci-fi. And this is ostensibly kind of a thriller, but really more of like just a character study of Jane Doe. So yeah, if what you love about Murderbot is Murderbot, I think Jane Doe, there's definitely some parallels in the character types here. I have a type, apparently. So there you go. Ooh, okay, so the next one's a little more obscure. So if you like Mrs. Dalloway, if you like Virginia Woolf's kind of take on stream of consciousness, I would say if you've not tried Loving by Henry Green, give it a go. Both of them sort of revolve around sort of domesticity and our stream of consciousness from roughly the same era. And I didn't know that going into reading Loving, but I actually really like the way Henry Green does his stream of consciousness, much as I really like the way Virginia Woolf does hers. I'm somebody who doesn't always love that, but I really, like, this is my favorite version of that kind of writing. And this is one that reminded me of this in a positive way. So a little more of an obscure kind of modern classic, but yeah, if you like this kind of writing, I would say give Loving. I've not read Living or Party Going, which are the other two in this collection. Yeah, but definitely I can say Loving has that quality to it. So if you like her take on that writing style, give him a try. Okay, the next one is two books into one. So if you liked The Right Swipe and Girl Gone Viral by Alicia Rye, you should definitely give Take a Hint, Danny Brown by Talia Hibbert a try, because honestly, I think if you combine the plots of Girl Gone Viral and The Right Swipe, you would basically have the plot of this book. They're both romantic, like lighter touch with some like legit shit kind of underlying them. Like there's some real conflict that's baked in here. And they also, I think what makes this book, to my mind, like even better than those other two is the like writing quality and the banter. But I definitely think The Right Swipe in particular has some of the bantery aspects of it. Those two books definitely remind me a lot of this. I personally prefer this one, but if you like those other two, definitely give this particular book a try. And then I think that these are kind of, you could go either way on these, but if you're liking this Phoenix Unbound series from Grace, or it's called The Fallen Empire, sorry. The Fallen Empire series from Grace Draven, I would give the new series from Mila Vane / Mel Jane Brooke a try. The first one is A Heart of Blood and Ashes, and vice versa. I think what both of these series remind me of each other, I will tell you, I think the Mila Vane series is better, but they both are very character driven fantasy romance that have interesting and like really lovingly described worlds that they're inhabiting. So I think that that piece, like the writing quality, reminds me of each other somewhat. And yeah, the character-driven fantasy romance that I think read more fantasy than romance, both of them. But if you're reading and liking one series, you should definitely give the other series, I think, a try. And then I would say for another new release parallel here that I think is pretty good, if you enjoyed The Broken Girls by Simone St. James a few years ago, I think it is definitely worth checking out The Shadows by Alex North. And the reason I say that is because I think both of them have kids as a main part, like protagonist. There's sort of like multiple timelines happening. There's an investigation of something that is happening in the present that reflects on the past, and they both have potential kind of supernaturally elements and a lot of emphasis on sort of that supernatural element in the children's timeline piece of things. So I think that those are not like exactly the same in terms of writing and vibe, but I think they have a lot of similar elements. So if that's what you liked about The Broken Girls, you may also enjoy The Shadows. And then this one is maybe a little petty and a little bit of a reach, but I did just want to mention because I read these back to back, so it was such a clear parallel to me. If you liked Machines Like Me, or if you didn't but you liked the ideas in it, I would definitely recommend the longest story I believe in Exhalation, which is called, this is by Ted Chiang, The Life Cycle of Software Objects. It's I would call it maybe a long short story or short novella. And I just think it explores all of the same themes as Machines Like Me, but it just does it so much better in terms of AI and like sentient beings and what kind of agency they do or don't have, what humans' obligation to those beings might be. And this is just so much better in my opinion. Both of them are literary sci-fi, and I just think that this has the good writing and does those themes more compellingly. Next is one that I'm going on vibe and the kind of story it is. So if you like Angels and Demons by Dan Brown, I do think The Silence of the White City by Eva Garcia Sanez, I believe is the author of that one. It has a very Dan Brown-esque kind of pacing and vibe to the type of like historical-ish mystery that it's telling, or not historical, but like sort of, it's got the same energy as like a National Treasure or Angels and Demons or whatever, where I'm not gonna tell you the writing is great, but if you just want something that's sort of page-turny, propulsive, that type of very fast-moving commercial fiction, it did remind me of it. It is also set in Spain, so for those of us who do not live in Spain or who are not in Europe, it does also just sort of have that armchair travel quality of like seeing a different place and getting a slice of life from that place, or like the flavor of that place. So I think that if you're looking for something that's like kind of a quick page turner, that could be a good parallel there. And then this next one is definitely a theme thing. So if you liked Passing by Nella Larson, because I know that a lot of people have been talking about this recently, I think thematically Dread Nation from Justina Ireland is very similar. Like this is all about like biracial identities, how different people with biracial identities experience the world, what kind of choices they do or don't have, and like thematically is an indictment of the society that makes them make those choices. Now this is a classic of Harlem Renaissance literature, and this is a YA zombie novel set in alternative history. So in terms of like the kind of book they are, they're pretty different, but just the thematically, I almost was gonna make an entire video about books that thematically are about the idea of passing, but I don't think I have quite enough for that. So I just wanted to mention, I would have put both of these in there, and I do think if you like the themes in this one, this is definitely worth checking out. Okay, a few left here. So first, if you liked Magic Bites by Alona Andrews, I do think Devil in the Dark by Kit Rocha, which is a new release this year, is worth checking out. I'm gonna tell you right now, I think that Magic Bites and the Kate Daniel series is definitely better, but I think that there's a lot of parallels here, and I think if you go in not expecting it to be as good as the Alona Andrews, you're gonna have fun with this one. It definitely has the same sort of, they're both set in Atlanta, a dystopian Atlanta with like a speculative magical element thrown in. There's a lot of the same kind of tough female leads involved who are actually, I think, not just like the kick-ass heroine stereotype. Like, I think they are more fleshed out than that. They both have a strong romantic quality. I will say Devil in the Dark seems to be, each book is going to have its own couple versus this is one couple over the whole series. But all that to say, if you like this book or this series, I think it's definitely worth at least giving it a try because it has a lot of the same vibes to it. And then if you liked Sadie from a few years ago by, I believe, Courtney Summers, a new release that I think is definitely in the same ilk is The Night Swim by Megan Golden. Now I'm going to tell you, both of these books, they're very similar in terms of they're very, very dark. They portray a lot of violence against teens or children, and they both have like this true crime podcast element to them. Both are very, very well written. The main difference is that Sadie is sold as YA when I don't think it really is, and The Night Swim does not pretend to be YA. Like, it's just its own thing. If you like, so many content warnings for both of these, but if you did like Sadie, I do think that in terms of like writing quality, thematic depth, all of that, The Night Swim is definitely something worth your time in terms of a lot of the same kinds of vibes to it, and not the same story, but a pretty similar story. And then my last, if you like this, then you should try this parallel here is, I'm gonna say that if you liked This Is How You Lose a Time War by, I believe it's Amal El Motir and Max Gladstone, I believe are the authors of that one, then I think you should definitely try The Light Brigade by Cameron Hurley. Now, this book is not, so This Is How You Lose a Time War is a novella, this is a novel. This Is How You Lose a Time War is much more kind of experimental in its writing style than this is, but both of these are about time travel, about love won and lost amidst time travel. It's like military sci-fi within time travel, and plays with the sense of orientation the reader has in interesting ways. This Is How You Lose a Time War is much more experimental, so it does that much, much more. This one I think is more straightforward. Like, it's still disorienting, but it's not as disorienting. So I think that this might be a little more palatable. So if you liked This Is How You Lose a Time War, but one of the things that maybe you struggled with or wasn't like your favorite thing about it was that you wished it was a little easier to figure out what was going on, I think this would be a good read for you. Also, I just really love this book. I think that this is just a really satisfying, like, kind of political thriller. Yeah, super good. They both also, I think, have some queer elements in them, if I'm remembering rightly in here. So anyway, all that to say, I think that this could be a good, like, novel slash, like, not as confusing version of This Is How You Lose a Time War for people who like that one. And with that, I think that will do it for now. I just basically looked at the first half of the year of my reading to get those, so I may do another one of these towards the end of the year if I have more to tell you about. I enjoy doing these read-alike videos. I hope they're helpful. I know I enjoy watching them, so I hope you guys enjoy viewing them as well. Let me know if any of these sound really good to you, or if you have any other read-alikes for the ones that I've mentioned. And yeah, I think that will do it for now. So if you enjoyed this video, please like, subscribe, follow me on the social medias if you are so inclined. I have all that information listed in the description box below, along with a link to register to vote and some other fun things that I have been listening to, watching, reading. And yeah, I think that will do it for now. Hope you're having an absolutely lovely day today, and I will just talk to you soon. Bye!